All right, we're off and running on the Krueger Show, bright and early, Saturday morning, 9:15 on the West Coast, 15 minutes afternoon on the East Coast, where the coach joins us. Good morning to everybody. Welcome to the Krueger Show, brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out. They're in Emeryville. They're in Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week in both spots from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out. And they do run out, so get there early. Get some brisket. I just pulled my mic arm right out of the wall. Hold on. Give me.
I got you, Larry.
There we go. You
good, bro?
I just pulled it right out of the wall.
But yeah, man. Pause. Go ahead.
Check them out. And go get some brisket. Get some brisket chili. Tell them the Krug sent you. Go say hi to Damon and Mary. We're also brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Check that link in the description. Use the promo code Krug. K-R-U-E-G, and they'll match you up to your first $100. And also thanks to Sharp Corner, sports cards and collectibles. My good friend Anthony Catania has a great business there along the Monterey Peninsula. They're at 205 Cypress Avenue in Pacific Grove. Give Anthony a call. He's at 831-521-5264. Coach, how was your 4th, man? How was your 4th of July? Did you do anything? Did you guys blow up some fireworks or no?
Nah, man, unassuming on my side, man. Did some cleaning up, sat down, got some work done, tried to get ahead of the day. I tried to get ahead of my weekend, really. Friday was right around the corner, so we're all trying to, have a real weekend. So I worked on the 4th. I got some things done, did some honey-do lists and errands, but outside of that, though, I just enjoyed everybody else having a good time because it was in the air. So, you go to the grocery store, everybody's grabbing all of their barbecue stuff and ice, and, everybody's at the liquor store grabbing stuff. So, I mean, you felt it. It was good. And, of course, you couldn't ignore the fireworks.
You're having a 4th of July barbecue. You've got any kind of grill you want. What are you grilling? What is your favorite? You can grill anything.
Mm-hmm.
What's your choice to grill of grilling? What would you like to grill? I mean, everybody's got different moods, right? We got our hamburger days, we got our chicken days, we got our ribs days, we got our tri-tip days, we got our whatever. But what is your favorite thing to barbecue?
Ribs. That's it's like
pork ribs, beef ribs, pork ribs,
beef ribs. So if we're gonna get some ribs, we're gonna get some beef ribs. Just go ahead and get you one. If you get your one good beef rib that's been smoking all day, one thing that's really big in my family is chopped barbecue. So my uncle
barbecue. So
basically, all right. So growing up, my uncle used to get a hog. We'll get a hog and we'll put him in a ditch, probably about 6 to 8 feet deep, 6 foot, 8 foot deep ditch. Line that boy up with some bricks. And throw them down there and let them smoke for about 24 hours. But you let them smoke all day. So you got to get up at like 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning to get them down there. And you put them down there and then you bring them up after he's smoked. And that pig is encased with almost kind of like a candy wrapping of his own skin. So that skin is crackly, like paper, and it's paper thin. It's so good. And what it does, he go ahead and take the pig out, process it, chop it up, and then he'll put like hot sauce, vinegar, salt, pepper, spices, and it's like chopped barbecue, bro. So, and what you do with that, you can get chopped barbecue in many different ways. So you can have it just the way my uncle just prepares it with the vinegar base in the background, where it's the best, man. Or you can get the chopped barbecue with like the Carolina based barbecue is like more, Carolina based barbecue sauce is more thin, right? Mm-hmm. So you get some vinegar based Carolina barbecue sauce, and then you can go ahead and then get you some thick molasses based strap barbecue sauce, man. And all you need is some good buns, man, and you done for the day, man. So some good chopped barbecue and a fifth of whatever dark liquor you got. So you drinking pork, if you eating pork, you got to get you some bourbon. So that's
a heavy day, man.
Yeah,
that is a heavy day. You know what I barbecued a few weeks ago that it came out so amazing. Mm-hmm. I got the tomahawk, the tomahawk, what's it called? Ribeye.
Yeah.
Ribeye with the long bone in it, you know?
Yeah.
Almost like a
Yeah.
handle. Looks like a
Yeah.
handle.
Yeah. Tomahawk steaks. Yeah.
Like you're barbecuing a tennis racket.
If you're ever in DC, go to Stakowski's. They got the best tomahawk steaks that I've ever seen, man. They
Oh,
look like
man.
they almost look like fishing nets. They so big.
I did two the other day with garlic butter and I don't say anything. I'm not the kind of chef that after I sit down, put the food on the table, I'm like, how does it taste? I usually just wait. And I looked over at my second son, who's like, senior in high school and eats like a monster. And he just had his look on his face like, this is good.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, because the ribeye is already juicy and already flavorful. And if you give it great seasoning, a lot of fat in there. But man, when you cook it on the bone with the ribeye, with the bone in ribeye, with oh my gosh, the juiciness is off the charts. Off the charts. So I'm headed to Costco later this afternoon. It's going to be 103 degrees today here in Walnut Creek. So it's a weekend day to sit around, watch football. Oh, no, we don't have football. Sit around and watch baseball and hope that 3 weeks from now, training camp will actually begin. But let's talk a little football because that's what we do. Hey, one of the great shows that I saw this week, and I don't know if you've seen it yet. Have you seen the latest edition of HBO's Hard Knocks?
No, who's the team this year?
Well, it's they're doing like 3 different editions of it. Right now, they're going with the New York Giants, and it was all filmed during the draft and free agency. So it's all about the off season with the New York Giants. But then I think there's going to be another one, maybe with the Bears, and then there's that's going to be at training camp, just like they always do. And then there's going to be one in season again, and I'm not sure who that is. Colts. I'm not sure exactly the team. If anybody knows who the teams are, there's 3 Hard Knocks this year, but it's the New York Giants. Anyway, the New York Giants. Joe Shane is the general manager of the New York Giants, and he's already getting raked over the coals for kind of the way he was talking about Saquon Barkley and is he a difference maker and do they want him back and the dialogue between the Maras and the Giants' internal discussions on just it's really good stuff. I mean, I'll give you a glimpse of it real quick, and then we'll because this is really good. A couple of these scenes are amazing, and I don't know how you feel about Hard Knocks, Coach. A lot of people feel like it's played out. Now, as somebody who used to work in the NFL, it really reminds me of authentic training camp and all the different protocols that a football team goes through in training camp. And so I love it because it takes me right back to when I worked for the Cardinals, when I worked in the Canadian League. And I love it. I love Hard Knocks. To me, it's a little glimpse behind the scenes of what's going on in the NFL, the real stuff. Here is a scene from Hard Knocks. And this is Joe Shane with the Giants executive Tim McDonald on possibly losing Saquon Barkley. One guy says, we lose Saquon, what's our identity going to be? Shane's like, we got to upgrade the offensive line. You're paying Daniel Jones $40 million. It's not to hand the ball off to a $12 million back. All right, here it is. Let me put this up there. We can hear a little Hard Knocks for a segment. Here we go. Joe Shane, general manager of the New York Giants.
Are you listening to this, Larry?
Yeah.
I can't hear it.
Oh, okay. You couldn't hear that?
No, I can't hear it. Could the chat hear it?
I don't know. I thought they could hear it. Maybe was I not sharing it?
I didn't hear any audio. Did you guys hear that, chat? Nah, they can't hear.
They couldn't hear that. Okay. Maybe it's a website. Maybe I couldn't put it up there. Maybe that's better. Maybe that's better that we didn't play it. Maybe we would have demonetized ourselves. Anyway, Hard Knocks. It's interesting, and they supposedly they got into trouble a little bit because, he's kind of talking about Barkley's market and this and that, and there's a lot of running backs in free agency, and they're discussing who's going to pay him. Does anybody want to pay him? And there's a lot of people that feel like he overstepped his bounds or Hard Knocks went too far and gave too much of his personal stuff out there. But personally, I love this. I'm glad the Niners aren't doing it because I do think it kind of gives away your mindset, your opinions, your philosophies, whatever, hey, if you like a certain position more than another position, I mean, it's like, why tell the teams that you're competing with what your trends are and what your personal likes are? Seems like it could only hurt you in the future. But as a football fan, I love it. I absolutely love it. I love the behind the scenes on the football, the Hard Knocks. And then also, I don't know if you caught it. Did you watch any of the Netflix last year, the thing on the quarterbacks?
Receiver? No, the quarterback.
It was Mariota and Mahomes and Cousins.
Yeah, no, I saw pieces of it.
Yeah, that was incredibly well done. Incredibly well done. And I'm a big fan of that kind of stuff. All right, let's get though right into it. Kev titled the stream, "What is holding the 49ers back from being great?" If the Niners are going to fall short, Coach, of the Super Bowl this year, why? What will be the reason that they fall short in your mind? And it could be anything, right? It could be personnel, it could be coaching, it could be I mean, I'll say this, that Super Bowl hangover of teams that have lost the Super Bowl. I mean, what do you make of that? I mean, the only 3 teams out of 56 have rebounded from losing the Super Bowl to come back and winning it the following season. 2 of those came in Super Bowl history. So the Cowboys lost Super Bowl 5 to the Colts, and then they beat the Dolphins in Super Bowl 6. And then the Dolphins repeated that feat the following year. They went undefeated on the way to the Super Bowl in Super Bowl 7. But after that, it would be more than 40 years before the Patriots avenged a loss to the Eagles in the Super Bowl with a victory over the Rams in the next Super Bowl. This year, obviously, the Niners are trying to avoid that Super Bowl hangover. Is that going to be the reason that they fall short because they were in the Super Bowl last year?
Really, in my opinion, first off, you just got to deal with the game itself. Injuries is why we wouldn't go back. That's the number one reason. You just look at, we got a lot of top heavy units on the team. And if certain players go down, there's a big drop off behind those guys. What are we going to do if a Trent Williams goes down? Right? What are we going to do if George Kittle goes down? Right? That's basically the whole tight end room if George Kittle goes down.
Yeah. Probably the 2 most indispensable non-quarterbacks on the team right there.
There you go. What are we going to do? I mean, what are we going to do if BA goes down? Right? Who's going to be that true receiver to take over that lump of things? So injuries would be huge for us. If Nick Bosa doesn't seem to stay upright throughout the whole season, that'd be a huge problem, right? I don't even think we know what our defense would look like without Fred for an extended period of time. So right now we're top heavy. And that's cool. It is what it is. We're too close to the season to cry about it now. But if we're asking, that's number 1 for me is injuries. 2, the trenches. Let's stay at the line of scrimmage. I said this last year. I'm saying it again this year. Because it's football, this isn't unique to the Niners, but it's just the way it shakes out. Can we stop the run and can we run the ball? Right?
Yeah. That's a big one.
Yeah, and with running the ball, we're here. We've all been here long enough to know what I mean by that. It's not physically having the number 1 leading rusher in the NFL at running back, Christian McCaffrey. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, can we run the ball against the right teams on the right plays where we got to have it? Can we run the ball? So that's huge.
When everybody knows you're going to run it.
When everybody in the building knows we're running the ball, can we run the ball?
And can you get, and when we say run it, like, can you get a good, efficient yards per carry? It's not just, your total. It's like, what can you do? And can you run it? Can you run it only to the left side, like you've had times in the past, or can you
Right.
run it to the right side too?
Right. Right. So that's my biggest thing with the run game is that we find very creative ways to generate runs, to generate yardage. And it's awesome. You know what I mean? Kyle, good on Kyle for being able to put that stuff together. But as the margins close in the playoffs, right? And there's not a lot of creativity in playoff football. You know, it's more along the lines of execution with playoff football and execute an inside run. Larry, you know about inside run period during practice. The inside run is one of the most foundational periods of every football team, especially that period during practice, because ain't no receivers. Okay. There's no corners. All right. We're playing hash to hash. There are no sidelines. It's all inside run. And you guys gotta go, you gotta score. You got 100 yards to go score. So I'm very interested to see what our inside run looks like when I come out there to camp, if we even do it. But running the ball when we need to run it is going to be huge for us. That will be able to hurt us. Of course, we talked about stopping the run. We've pretty much been, I don't think we've had this many questions with the interior of our defensive line in years past. I feel like this is the most unstable we have felt about the interior of the defensive line until now. We just let go of Eric Armstead. Javon Kinlaw finally kicked the bucket. He's gone. We're looking at seeing what that depth does. And then, also let's just stay with the middle of the field and just take it up a level. What are we going to do at that other inside linebacker spot with Dre being gone? That may be an issue, right? Because, teams are all about working harder, not smarter. I mean, working smarter, not harder. And what that means is that if the team figures out that you guys simply can't stop the run on defense, then that's what we're doing today. All right, why are we going to reinvent the wheel? We're going to run the ball at you. You schematically can't put up with it. You guys aren't in shape for it. And we much rather do that than try to, waste plays or waste parts of our variations of our offense on you guys. Let's just get out of here with a win. So when teams figure out what you're bad at quickly, you begin to become marginalized in competition. So I think that being able to pay attention to the trenches, can we run the ball? Can we stop the run and injuries? And as well as that middle linebacker spot, if we'd be able to really supplant that, because I feel like whoever plays at that other linebacker spot is going to dictate what we're going to get out of Fred this year. We're going to see how effective Fred can be, being able to basically still lead the defense as he does, play amazing, but at the same time, kind of get somebody up to snuff next to him. That's going to be something that could hurt us down the line. And then last but not least, Brock Purdy. He needs to stay healthy. He's got to stay upright, and he can't get hurt. If Brock goes down, the whole season's over.
Yeah. Well, yeah, there's no question. I mean, I don't like
that's
Dobbs
not
or Allen.
Is that?
I think if Mahomes goes down, Kansas City's year's done. If Herbert goes down, Chargers are done. I mean, it's just the way it kind of works. I'm a little concerned about what's real and what's fake on their defense, on the Niner D line. I like the look of the first group, right? Floyd and Bosa, Hargrave and Collins. Okay, I like the look of it, but I still get some concerns. But then after that, like after those front four guys, who's real? Who can be counted on? Is Drake Jackson real, or can he not be counted on? Is Robert Beal Jr. real, or can he not be counted on?
I mean, we've done this. Yeah.
What about the new guys? Jordan Elliott and Yatir Gross-Matos, can they be counted on? Kevin Givens wasn't, he was Cadillacing it next to Chase Young in the NFC title game. Can you count on him? And then after that, what about the next group? Kalia Davis, T.Y. McGill, Austin Bryant, Evan Anderson, Shaquille Brown. Is there anybody there that they can count on? So that would be one of my main concerns. I mean, I'm looking at a defensive line that looks like it's 4 lines deep and they got a bunch of guys. But when you look closer, you realize that there's just a lot of unknown. Like, we have no idea what Evan Anderson or Shaquille Brown are going to be able to contribute. And then we don't really have a great idea about what that second line of Drake Jackson, Jordan Elliott, Kevin Givens, and Yatir Gross-Matos is going to be able to contribute. I'm hoping that Drake has a big year and that Gross-Matos steps in, and that Jordan Elliott is the player that I remember coming out of Missouri, and, he's a positive surprise. But, I mean, to me, there's a lot of unknowns there. And then I would say, if you said number one problem, I would say until somebody can show me otherwise, I'm going to say it's the run D. You lose Eric Armstead, you lose Dre Greenlaw, you may not have Talanoa Hufanga. That's an awful lot of your best run defenders, and especially Greenlaw. I mean, 2 years ago, you had Aziz, Warner, and Greenlaw. Now you're just going to have Warner, 2 years later. So, and I thought they missed Aziz terribly last year. So you missed Aziz. Now you're going to miss Greenlaw. Greenlaw made a ton of tackles against the run. Him and Fred were so good against the run that it kind of camouflaged the fact that the rest of the group wasn't that great against the run. So now you take Dre out of the mix, and now you throw in Devondre Campbell or Graham or Winters or whoever it's going to be. And what does the Niner run D look like? Because you're right. If you can't stop the run, why is anybody going to take a chance? I mean, we saw it in the playoffs with Kansas City.
Yeah.
When teams, they just said, you know what? We're just going to run the ball. We got a great center. We got two great guards. We got receivers we don't trust and all kinds of stuff going wrong in our offense. We'll just run it between the guards with Pacheco, and then we'll get to third and manageable, and we'll put it in Patrick's hands, and we won't take chances. No 5 and 7 step drops. No down the field. No Marquez Valdez-Scantling. We're just going to throw it to Kelsey and Pacheco, and that's it. Otherwise, Patrick's going to run. They just simplified.
Small ball. And they said, we got the defense. We got
chances,
the defense.
No risks.
Don't take any chances. Let's go with what we know. All right. And we got the signal caller who's not going to make any mistakes. Small ball. Let them lose the game. We don't got to go win it. Let them go lose it. So that's not us, I hope not. But when you have issues with being able to stop the run, most teams are going to lead with that. It's like, wait a minute. Before we even start game planning, burning the midnight oil, let's just, can we get in I real quick? Can we get in 12 and just run at them real quick? If they can't do that, it's like boxing. It's like, dude, I'm not throwing no power shots. Deal with this jab. If you can't stop this jab, then I'm jabbing you all day. I'm gonna punch your head off all day. You just got to be disciplined. So,
the Niners capitalize when teams take risks. When they get into third and long and they drop 7 steps back and they can rush, they can have their D line dominate. But what if a team doesn't get to third and long? What if they don't drop 7 steps back? What if they just run the ball and then have the quarterback, run it for a first down and keep it out of the air and don't take chances? So you almost have to do like 4 or 5 things first on defense to earn the right to rush the passer on third and long. And ask the Ravens about what it was like rushing the passer on third and long in the AFC title game. They didn't get a lot of opportunities to do it. So, because they couldn't really stop the run.
Let me ask you a question. So, do you do this? Like, when I go through the season, right, I see, like, okay, let's say the Niners, we're trying to figure out if we can run the ball or not, right? And if we run the ball on what I perceive, right, and in this scenario, it would be what you perceive against a team that you don't think is that good against stopping the run, or you don't really respect the team, or it's not like a perennial team that's going to be in the playoffs. If we have a good day against that team, does that count to you? Not count. It all counts. It's the league. But is that weighted a little bit where you're like, so when we run the ball on all of these teams across the league, right? but we can't run the ball on the Ravens, or we can't run the ball on the Lions, or we can't run the ball on like the Bills, for instance, hypothetically. In your mind, isn't that the real conversation? Do you ever do that where you're like, well, I don't care what the hell we just did to the Commanders. Like, I don't care that we just ran up 35 points on the Broncos. Who gives a fuck? Like when we see the Ravens, it's a completely different ball game. So do you ever have that I don't know what else to call it, almost kind of like that curve in your head when you assess the team? Or do you always just, whatever we do against whatever NFL team is just, it all plays to you?
Well, okay. First of all, this, and who's good and who's bad against the run, it probably takes 6 to 8 weeks just for the stats to matter, right? Just because a team isn't good against the run and it's week 3 doesn't mean they're not good against the run. It just means that in the first 2 weeks they weren't good against the run. So like the stats start to matter once you have 6, 8 games. Once you get, that's the thing. It's like if you look at the statistical profile and do your game plan off of that early in the year, you're going to get burned. But late in the year, it's safe because you've got trends that are established over months of football, lots of games. So you got to make sure you are seeing what you're seeing. But I think everybody kind of looks at it like, okay, what's this team been like against the run? Let's say the last 3 years. Has the personnel changed? What are they like? What have they been like this year? And there's a number that they give up per carry. And if they're giving up a big number per carry and you don't run successfully, you're going to be disappointed. If they're giving up a tiny number per carry, 1.2 yards per carry, and you run successfully, you're going to be pleased. But it's all based on, the stats are just, you can't really go off the stats. It's like, it's too small a sample size in the first September, October, too small a sample size. That's like when I asked Shanahan, because I asked him about it, right? He was on tape at the beginning of the end of the preseason. I said, Kyle, how concerned are you about your run D? You haven't stopped the run in the preseason at all. And he's like, well, you know what? You're right. And if it was all about our ability to stop the run in the preseason, then I would be really concerned. But we've been good against the run in the past, and I expect we'll be good against the run this year as well. While that was wishful thinking, is you were taking away Hassan Ridgeway, Jimmy Ward, Azeez Al-Shaair, Samson Ebukam. You took away about 6 or 7 really good run defenders and added Javon Hargrave with that money. So you added a guy who's not great against the run. You took away a bunch of good run defenders to pay him the money. And then you looked up in the preseason and you couldn't stop the run. And when I asked about it, he's like, well, I think we should be able to stop the run. We did in the past. Well, yeah, but in the past, you had Azeez and Ebukam and all these other guys. And then sure enough, the answer was that the run D was a problem. And it really was a problem throughout the year. The only thing that didn't make it a problem, and I thought was a little surprising watching the Niners, is the Niners offense took teams out of the run game. They got up big on Arizona. They got big on Dallas. They got up big on like 5 or 6 teams in the beginning of the year, Pittsburgh, and they took away the run. Teams weren't even trying to run in the second half. So then it looks like, the Niners they're just pretty good against the run. They're not great, but they're just pretty good. But in reality, they weren't good. They just teams weren't running on them. And then when we got to the playoffs, they realized they couldn't stop Jones from Green Bay. They couldn't stop Montgomery or Gibbs in Detroit. They did a much better job against Pacheco in the Super Bowl. But for the most part, the Lions and the Packers just gashed them in the run. So how good are they against the run? That's the unknown this year. We don't really know how good the Niners are against the run. And I suspect with no Greenlaw, no Armstead up front, that they can't be better. They just can't be better unless Malik Collins is just monster, or Devondre Campbell is just absolutely monster against the run. They're probably not going to be better. So that's my big concern. I've got concerns at free safety. I've got concerns on the O line, but obviously, can you keep Brock healthy? I don't like the backup quarterback group, but to me, the number one thing that keeps the Niners back from being great is all of a sudden they get into a game with the Rams and Blake Corum is running it up and down the field on them, or they get into a game with Arizona and they can't stop James Conner, or they get into a game with Detroit again and they can't stop Gibbs and Montgomery. So, I think
Larry, you know how it is. D. Monkey see, monkey do. Once it's out the bag that the Niners can get ran on, that's it. Yeah. Everybody.
It's huge. Yeah. And then everybody says, "Hey, that's the recipe."
Yeah.
You want to beat them? That's how you do it. By the way, it looks like Kyrie Jackson, the former Oregon corner, has died today in a car accident.
Yeah, unfortunate. I heard.
A lot of people saying R.I.P. Kyrie Jackson.
Yeah,
6'4" corner from Oregon was playing with the Vikings, I believe. Sad. That is sad. That is really sad.
I wanted us to get.
What's that?
I said I wanted. I liked him. I wanted us to get him.
I did too. Big dominating corner, very smothering. Could have been a really good NFL player. That is just so sad. Anytime you see, somebody taken away as a, death is always a sad thing, but for young people, it's tragic. There's an article out right now about the Bengals. I'm reading here about how the Bengals there's 3 guys who are cut candidates for the Bengals. And I want to look at who they had down on this list, because one of the guys who they say is a cut candidate is their edge rusher, Joseph Osai, who played at Texas. And I'm looking at the Bengals depth chart. Osai, is an interesting player, Coach. He was a 3rd-round pick in the 2021 draft at a University of Texas, and he's an awesome athlete, 6'4", 265, almost ideal defensive end size. He's only 24. But you look at Cincinnati's depth chart, man, they got Sam Hubbard and Trey Hendrickson up front. Those are their starting defensive ends. And then they have Miles Murphy, who's a stud, 1st-round pick in 2023, North Carolina. And then they just drafted Cedric Johnson out of Ole Miss. They also have Gunter, who's a pretty good pass rusher as well. Anyway, Osai's running with the 3s. And they're saying he may not make the roster. That's a guy who might be better than Drake Jackson. That's a guy that might be better than Robert Beal. Like, to me, there was a great article the other day about, guys who could wind up getting cut at the cut down. And to me, this is the next focus for the 49ers as they try to build a team out for this year. It's like that next cut down. Who's going to get cut, and can you add a piece or 2? And they had 4 defensive ends that they projected to be cut by the end of camp. Osai was one in Cincinnati. Darrell Taylor was another for Seattle, former Tennessee Vol. Isaiah Foskey, who played at Notre Dame, who's playing for the Saints. He's getting caught up in a numbers game in New Orleans. Very, very talented player, 1st-round pick, or maybe 2nd-round pick. And then John Kaminsky from the Lions, who played at Charleston. All 4 of those defensive ends, they say, may get cut. This is an area, Coach, for the 2nd year in a row. Last year, we were taking our look at guys like Taco Charlton. To me, if Drake Jackson and Robert Beal can't be depended on, the Niners are right back where they were last year, looking to pick up anybody and everybody coming off the edge as backups. To me, that's a concern spot. And I like all those guys. I like Foskey. I like Darrell Taylor. I like Joseph Osai. I would take those guys. We'll see. I mean, I'm a big Drake Jackson fan, and I thought Beal showed improvement late in the year. But those 2 guys better show up really ready to roll. And since they've never really had any consistent production, it makes you wonder if they will. And if they don't, the Niners are going to be right where they were last year, looking for defensive linemen off the waiver wire.
Yeah, I like Isaiah Foskey. I'm just giving Joseph Osai another look. He was a little bit smaller when he was coming out of college. He was just tipping over 240 at the time. He's got I don't know, like there's a reason why. I think everybody's story is different. Context matters, right? And it'd be interesting to know exactly why these guys are on low. A third round pick in Joseph Osai, I'm kind of feeling like he deserves to be there. He just really hasn't gotten better since he's been in the league. Like I remember him. So that's pretty much something that I don't know. You know, there's a difference between getting depth and then there's a whole different ball game and just getting bodies, right? And we don't want just bodies. I mean,
Right.
Isaiah Foskey is an actually live position. I feel like he's actually a cap casualty where like they want to keep him, they just can't.
I mean, they it's weird. I don't know what the Saints were thinking. I mean, coach, they drafted this kid. I mean, maybe they're unhappy with him because, I mean, if you look at their depth chart on defensive line, their starting defensive ends are Cam Jordan and Carl Granderson. Okay, so they've got an established duo there. Then they signed Chase Young away from the Niners. They drafted Peyton Turner out of Houston in the first round. They picked up Tanino Passanio from Kansas City. And they drafted Trajan Jeffcoat from Arkansas, or they got him after the draft. And then they've got Foskey, who was a second-round pick last year, and they got Foskey running with the threes. They got Foskey, he's their third string left defensive end behind Granderson and Turner. We're talking about a guy who's 6'5", 270, very productive player, played at De La Salle. He's a Bay Area kid. He showed up in Santa Clara at the Niners local pro day. And at the time I thought, well, maybe they really like this kid a lot because, I mean, they didn't have a high pick and he was supposed to go late first round. He wound up going in the second. But if the Saints want to move off of Isaiah Foskey, that's the kind of guy that I'd be very interested in adding.
Yeah, 100%. 6'5", 265, 4.5 speed. Was lightning quick coming out of Notre Dame, second round pick. I would want to know exactly why they're trying to move on from him. I've been reading around about Isaiah Foskey. I believe that they just can't afford him for what they have going on right now on their team. But how they're drafting is interesting as well. But that would be a real depth piece where I feel like as long as I'm a little bit more lenient on pass rushers and D linemen for the simple fact that we have Coach Kasarik. Coach Kasarik has shown his weight in gold and what he can do with whatever we bring into the building. So it doesn't bode well for players when they don't respond because of how many times he's done this over and over again. So when you are looking at a Robert Beal, and I feel bad about Robert Beal Jr. because he just got here. You know what I'm saying? Like he just got here. So even throwing Robert Beal into the whole, like, where is our depth coming from conversation, it is a little unfair because Drake Jackson should be really getting all of this pressure right now. He
was the year prior. Drake was a 22 second round pick. Beal was a 23 fifth round pick.
Fifth round pick, exactly. And those two things are not the same. And Drake Jackson has been here long enough where, I mean, if we're still talking about issues where, I mean,
big year for both those guys.
Huge year. Drake couldn't stay on the field last year because he just wasn't in shape. And then
I don't know what happened there because he had that one great game and then he played a few games. I thought then his knee didn't he have a knee issue? I think he had a knee problem.
Yeah, he had a knee issue. And then we just didn't hear from him again. I think he had like 3 sacks
in week 1. But his lack of upper body strength, I think, is kind of a real issue too.
It is.
He's not been able to keep his strength.
He gets manhandled at the point of attack. He doesn't have strong hands. I mean, it's something that he needs to be able to rectify. And honestly, from a lineman standpoint, that's weight room, Larry. Not being strong enough is like akin to like a DB who isn't flexible enough or like you ain't quick enough. It's like, man, you better get your ass on them cones and get out there on that ladder. Like, what you doing this for? If you can't use your athleticism. So if you are, we always say, man, like the realest football is the closest to the ball. And if you can't operate from a physical standpoint and you got your hand in the dirt, then you're a liability, right? So that's something where Drake Jackson, he needs to get in the weight room. I'm positive that he is, but I shudder to think if we have another 315 for reps conversation with him, because I don't want to hear that no more. That wasn't.
Say that again. What's that?
When he was excited that he could bench 315 for reps.
Oh, like, right. Yeah.
Yeah. And everybody was kind of like, that's not the flex you think it is, bro. It's not.
He lacks, first of all, if you stand next to Drake, he's got a regular build. He's got a regular person's build.
Yeah.
If you stood next to like Samson Ebukam a couple of years ago in that locker room, this guy's sculpted. His shoulders were just boulders. Just freaking unbelievable physical development. Drake looked like a regular guy. So he needed to put on some serious strength in the upper body. And they said he was there lifting last year. He looked a little stronger, but it wasn't not appreciably stronger. No. Had a good first game. Then, just kind of by week 6 or 7 was just, persona non grata. It was like, where is this guy? Is he ever coming back? And I just think that's a huge, huge camp for him. He's got no guarantees. Beal's got no guarantees. This is the NFL. You get a year or two. You get drafted, you get a year or two. And guess what? Then there's somebody else coming up. There's some other young defensive end.
Yeah, I mean, not for long. That's what the NFL stands for. You know what I mean?
1 year. I mean, not 1 year. I mean, if you're a first round pick, you get like 3 years. If you're a second and third round pick, you get like 2 years. If you're a late round pick, you don't get any years. You just, you got to make it or you're cut. Yeah. So, so that's going to be a key spot for sure.
I also want to hear though. One of the reasons why this is a topic of conversation for Drake is he does have incredible upside. He's so athletic. He's got tons of flexibility, quick twitch. His get off is remarkably fast, not just for his size, but just period.
He backs down passes. He actually can play. He can rush as an interior guy.
Very athletic. You know what I mean? So for me, he just needs to get stronger. Right. I feel like all of that will tie together, but there's how can I say this? Like there's caveats in his game that he uses because he's not strong. Right. So he uses the side swipe, or he uses scissor hands, or he uses one arm to get long, he long arms. Right. But he uses all of those techniques in a bastardized fashion because he doesn't have the strength to pull it off correctly, right? So he needs the strength to become a more complete player because the skill set is there, right? It's not like he's just bad. He's not strong enough, right? Rob, stop. So
Rob's just scissoring. There's a couple things going on here. One, I mean, if you look at the greatest pass rushers, they're completely liquid. And what I mean by that is if they try one move and you counter, well, they've got a counter to every counter. Mm-hmm. So I'm coming at the quarterback and I'm going to try to beat you to the edge. Okay, now you beat me to the edge. Now I'm knifing back inside. Now you knife back inside. Now all of a sudden I'm twisting off of you. And, the really great pass rushers cannot be denied. And they cannot, there's no one way they rush, but there's no one way to block them. And you can, right. and they can spin from this move into this counter, into that counter. And there's no answer. What I saw with Drake was if he was initially stonewalled, he was kind of cooked. He didn't really have those counters and those extra spin moves. Now, there were some good things to like. He's a great kid. He plays with a high, he bats down passes. He plays with a high revving motor, but he's got to get stronger and he's got to get more technique and he's got to have more counter moves. And it's just, Beal's got incredible speed. And you can see that speed. And he can beat you with that speed. And sometimes, I think Beal's got a real exciting skill set because he can, his speed is such a difference maker that he kind of beats you with his speed. Then you got to counter and really kick out. And then he's got all kinds of ability to spin inside, and he's worked on his technique. So huge year for both of those guys. They have to deliver.
Huff. That's big year for Huff. Big year for Huff. You know, seeing how he comes off this injury. But I think that the safety room, or that position in general, is really contingent upon his health, the reemergence of Talanoa Hufanga on the defense. Because if Huff, I feel as though that if Huff comes back healthy, that could arguably be one of the strongest units on our defense. With Malik Mustafa, Jair Brown, and Talanoa Hufanga, if they all were healthy at once, there will be so many unique things that we could do to put those guys on the field at the same time, to be able to help out with that run defense, to be able to get in there. And I could see Huff being blitzed into the A gaps. I mean, you could really try some things with 3 live bodies that are all, very aggressive near the line of scrimmage.
It's funny too, because somebody's like, when's Huff going to show up? Huff is trying to get back for week 1, but there's no guarantees. There's other guys out there. They could go after a Justin Simmons. They could try to trade for a guy like Budda Baker. But there's also been some speculation that there's going to be guys at the cut down that might be really talented that could be there. Richie Grant, they're saying may get cut in Atlanta. Lewis Seen, they're saying may get cut in Minnesota. I'd have interest in some of those young safeties that were high picks that get cut if indeed the 49ers are looking for an extra body. All right, let's hit the latest on Aiyuk.
Larry, there's here.
I know. What's that?
Kyrie Jackson passed away here in my hometown.
Really? They say it was a car accident, huh?
Yeah. I didn't realize it happened in PG.
Very sad. Paul George, is that Prince George County or something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Very sad. Very sad. Way too soon. That's the whole thing. It's like, you have kids, and I've got kids who drive, and it's like, I always tell them, look, put the phone down.
Route
put
4
your seatbelt on.
That's a quarter-mile straight spot with no cameras. I know what they were racing.
Yeah, well, that's always stupid too. Hopefully that's not the case.
Yeah, Route 4 off of Pennsylvania Avenue is it's a notorious road out here.
We've all lived that age. That 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, you do stupid things. You think you're going to live forever. You think you're untouchable. And it's like, life's very tenuous. And you just never know. You just never know. So yeah, terrible. Way, way, way too soon. The always awkward transition back to non-life and death, but Brandon Aiyuk situation, coach, has not gotten any better. Mike Garafolo, NFL Network, reported Tuesday that Aiyuk and the Niners, quote, are no closer to a deal despite recent talks between the two sides. So he's scheduled to become a free agent next year. If he doesn't sign a new deal, the Niners are prepared, I guess, for his exit. They drafted Ricky Pearsall. They drafted Cowing. They've got quite a bit of depth at wide receiver. They could look to get something in return for Aiyuk if the contract negotiations don't improve. Many of us are expecting it will, but I hope the Niners keep Aiyuk. He's a star, and I think him and Purdy are on the verge of doing some good things together. There's a lot of teams around the NFL though that need a number 1 or number 2 wide receiver, and that makes any trade involving Aiyuk intriguing, because the Niners could definitely get good compensation in return for him if they decided to move him. What's your read on it, Coach? I mean, it was kind of a weird thing. I mean, we saw the Pivot podcast, and there was a lot of talk there. And then he's like, hey, I got one more meeting with the Niners. If it goes well, I'm going to be there. And if it doesn't go well, I'd like to play with Jaden Daniels with the Commanders. And if it's not the Commanders, I'd like to play for the Steelers. And then we were told that they had a meeting and that the meeting went well. And then a couple days after that, we saw Aiyuk driving down the road there, going into the parking lot at the facility saying, hey, and this was only 2 days later. So I thought, okay, if he met with him 2 days ago and now he's at the facility, maybe he's there to sign. Maybe we're going to see him sign. But since that point, he hasn't signed. And now the NFL Network's Garofalo is reporting that they're no closer to a deal. What do you think? Is this just, hey, the Niners on vacation? They've agreed to 99% of it, and they just have to cross the T's and dot the I's, and they'll do that in the next 2 or 3 weeks before training camp starts? Or do you really believe, as Garofalo is reporting, that the two sides are truly no closer to a deal, and we could be at an impasse, and it may be getting serious? What's your guess? Because we're only left to guess at this juncture.
Well, let's keep the main thing the main thing. The Niners are in the driver's seat, not Brandon Aiyuk. And with that, the Niners can sign Brandon Aiyuk whenever they feel like the opportunity needs to happen. Now, we can be fair and say that the Niners should have probably done this deal a lot sooner. They kind of waited a little bit. But that doesn't even really matter because we're here now.
Well, it also takes two to tango. So, like, we can't, like, I can't do a deal with you if you're like, hey, I don't want to sign that deal. You know what I mean?
Exactly. The way I see it is that you just got to go by the numbers. BA's due to make $14 million this year, and they can franchise him next year. The Niners can essentially keep BA for 2, if possible, 3 years if they wanted to. And for what it's worth, BA, if you do get moved, I don't think that the Niners are going to be inclined to send you somewhere where you want to go, right? We can't get this done, right?
Like, it's not automatic he's going to be a Commander. They could send him to Denver.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Old Navy's is like really filling me in with some information, man. Like, I'm hearing,
Navy's?
Yeah, man.
He's about the car crash. He says it was also a player from Bowie State that died in the accident as well, Coach. There were 3 kids that died.
Yeah,
they were leaving a lounge. You went to Bowie State. Are you coached at Bowie State?
At Bowie State, and I enrolled at Bowie State. Yeah. Yes. So I was there. I'm an alum of Bowie State.
This hits you more.
I gotta do some calls after this one. But really
tragic though. God.
Yeah, just tragic. I'm
so sad.
Yeah, man. I'm trying to. So really, with BA, the Niners, I don't understand why they think that the Niners are inclined to send BA to a team where he wants to go. Right? Like, I don't see him going to the Commanders or the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think that the Niners are trying to get worth for him. I do want to touch on this. I've touched on this in different shows, but it's rich that people are saying that the Niners are talking out of both sides of their mouth. And it's like, they're out here trying to push BA as a number 1 pick, and they're saying that they want a first-round pick for him, but they're going behind closed doors and they're not trying to pay BA like a number 1 receiver. And it's just like, yeah, duh. No shit, Sherlock. That's what teams do. That's what everybody does. Like, if you got a car that's like used, are you going to sit here and tell everybody, yeah, you know what, really, it's a POS. The carburetor's busted, the windows are down. It's really this, but like, no, you're going to dress it up and say that, man, this car is reliable as hell. Look how long I've had it. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're going to market your product, bro. Nobody sells high and buys low. Like, no, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you're trading in a car at a dealership and you're getting a new car and everything that's wrong with it intimately. How many people honestly volunteer all that information to the dealer when he's like, I'll give you $3,000 for the car.
for the trade-in. And then you're like, well, by the way, the air conditioning doesn't work. I'll give you 2,800. By the way, the brakes have been squeaking. They've been squeaking. I'll give you 2,500. By the way, it goes through it goes through oil like nobody's business because it's a defective fuel injection. I'll give you 2,000 for it. By the way, you're not going to do that. You're just going to shut up and take the 3,000.
So for me, that's the way I see that. I have no problem with the Niners doing that. So I understand that. And with BA, I hope he understands like the track of where he's going with this. Right? I hope he understands this. Like, I hope he understands that if he does get his money, then it's going to always be about your money. And you can never go back off of that for the rest of your career, because you won't give the Niners a discount. You won't give the Niners any type of contingencies, or you won't come off of what you're asking for. Then that's kind of like your brand now. That's your brand from here on out. So every time it's time for Brandon Aiyuk to get paid, Brandon Aiyuk is going to want top tier receiver money. But for what it's worth, Brandon Aiyuk has yet to put together a top tier receiver year. And in order for
last year was pretty good, right?
It was good. It was good, but it wasn't elite.
Well, it's funny. I'm with you on this, but I've had other people say, "Hey, man, 1,300 yards is pretty damn good."
In 2004,
I'm with you actually, because I'm more of a touchdown guy. But that's just because I grew up watching Jerry Rice have a year where he scored 23 touchdowns. So it's like, sorry if I'm not wowed by 6 or 7. You know what I mean? When I watched Jerry score 23.
And I'm not even here to say that Brandon Aiyuk isn't that player. He just doesn't have a lot of those opportunities on the team that he plays with.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that, it's like
that ain't going to change. If anything, it's probably going to change more the other way, right? Because you just added 2 more receivers.
Exactly. So I feel like there's a difference. The elephant in the room is that Brandon Aiyuk is having a conversation that isn't about just him getting paid. It's not. All right. Brandon Aiyuk is having a conversation where he's trying to completely shift what the Niners do. All right. He wants to get paid.
He wants more balls. He wants more attention.
Yes. You getting paid $30 million a year. You getting paid that type of money, man. That means you're the guy. That means that in order for that to make sense, we got to change the offense. We have to give you more reps. All right. That means that the game plan every week is going to be, how do we get BA involved? Because you are the guy now. So if you're asking for that, then you really have to start thinking about what the answers that will be coming off of that if you're Kyle Shanahan. Right? It's like, he wants what? Man, this ain't about football. This is about him saying that he wants the ball more. This is about him saying he's better than Debo, that I'm the future of this offense. Like, come on, man. Money means things. It's not. And for him to just think that it's just about money, or that people can't see past the request of it being just about money, shows how naive he is.
Well, it's such an interesting thing that you bring up, Coach, because it's like, in some ways, it's easier if it's just about money. It's like, hey, we're going to pay you. And then after that, shut up, because we're going to do this the way we're going to do this. And if we're going to get you the ball, it's not going to be because of the contract. It's going to be because we're trying to win the game. So it's like, I'll ask you, what's the bigger deal breaker in your mind, Coach? The money? Or if you're right, and Aiyuk really does, and he kind of made some references during the Pivot podcast to what you're saying here, is that like he wants this to be kind of like a new era.
Yes,
that's
exactly what he's saying.
Do you have a bigger problem with the money or making him the focal point?
I have a bigger problem with making him the focal point, because once you get the money, then it's all got to be about BA, right? Because it's a pitch and catch situation. Now we got to pay Brock, and now we're traditional offensively, right? You can't have Christian McCaffrey around if BA gets paid. You can't even have Debo around if BA gets paid. right? And that's the real conversation that's transpiring right now. It's like, man, you're asking for levels of compensation that completely shift the way we do things. Do you understand what you're asking us to do? And if you want to gaslight and say, well, I'm just, I just want my money. I just want what I'm paid. It's like, nah, dude, now you're being facetious. Now you're showing me that we can't even have a real conversation because you're asking for money and you're trying to gaslight and act as if that, I'm just looking at the raw numbers. 1 + 1 = 2. And it's like, no, man, you've been here long enough. You know the way things run. You're a receiver on a team where you no block, no rock, man. You know what it is here. So you asking for $30 million means what? What are you really trying to say, Brandon?
Here's the question I guess I would have. If Lynch came to you and said, hey, coach, love the channel, love the neon sign. You can run this negotiation from this point on. I'm signing it over to you.
Mm-hmm. Well, number one thing, you can't have it all, man. Perfect's not on the menu. So the number one thing I'd ask both sides is, what are you willing to come off of? You're not going to get everything because I'm not going to get everything. So go in your corner and figure out what are your soft targets and what are your hard targets. We need to know where the scope is of this thing. All right, let's get some hard boundaries so we know what to actually negotiate about. All right. But if you got hard boundaries across the board, then we don't got nothing to talk about because this isn't a negotiation. This is a request. You're just telling me. So what are you willing to come off of? What can be actually negotiated? Talk to me, man. So that's the number one thing. And if it's guaranteed money, we'll talk about the guaranteed money. If it's AAV, we'll talk about AAV. All right. If it's years, we'll talk about years. If it's incentives, we'll talk about incentives. But give me something where we can actually talk about something where you may lose and I may lose. And tell me what you absolutely need so I can figure out how to get to that in different ways. There's more than one way to skin a cat. You want your 30 million, your AAV? Well, you can't get $30 million AAV, but what we can do is we can shift that over into the form of a bonus. We can go ahead and get your guaranteed money together, but you got to give us more years on the back end. All right. Because we can't give you that type of money with 3 years. Right. So there's ways to negotiate the deal. All right. Where we can all come to the middle. But you just got to understand that some of the things you want, they may get achieved, but they may not look the same. The optics may be different. But those are the number one things that I would say to Brandon Aiyuk on his team is that, what are you willing to lose with?
I just think if Lynch came to me and said, I'm going to turn the negotiation over to you. The more I think about this and the more I look at the factors, the more I think I want him on that 5th-year option. I don't want to do that deal right now because see, right now, as soon as you do that deal, you no longer have flexibility. All the decisions have been made. So like to pay Brandon Aiyuk, let's just say 30 million. It could be 28, could be 29, but to pay him long-term means you're not going any further than this year with Debo. What if Debo is better than Aiyuk this year? You're screwed. If Debo is somehow better than Aiyuk this year and you pay Aiyuk, then you have to move off of Debo at the end of the year. And what if he outplays Aiyuk? Now you're getting rid of your second best receiver, or you're getting rid of your best receiver and you're keeping your second best receiver. In that case, if Debo outperforms Aiyuk, I think they could have very comparable numbers this year. It's pretty clear that Debo's working out hard. Why Aiyuk's doing podcasts. So I'm not saying Aiyuk's not in shape, but I'm just saying, what happens? I mean, I think it's in the Niners' best interest since they just drafted Pearsall. What if Ricky Pearsall is the greatest receiver that ever played? What if Ricky Pearsall makes Jerry Rice look like garbage? I'm just saying, obviously we're laughing about this. He's not Jerry Rice. But let's just say he is.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say Jacob Cowing is Antonio Brown. He's awesome. Let's say Pearsall and Cowing are studs. Then they need to get the ball.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're not going to be happy that you have Brandon Aiyuk at $30 million if those guys are studs. So since you don't know about Pearsall yet and you don't know about Cowing, now if those guys they could also show up in camp and be awful, like not NFL. And then now Aiyuk's price goes up that much more. But in some ways, I almost feel like the Niners are being asked to make a decision right now, and they don't have all the info. They don't know what Pearsall is. They don't know what Cowing is. They don't know exactly what kind of year Debo's going to have. And you've got Aiyuk saying, I want you to shape the entire wide receiver room around my contract.
That's what he's asking.
Okay, but what isn't it in my best interest to have you play on the 5th-year option and have you compete against these guys? Because what if Pearsall's better than you? What if Cowing's better than you? What if Debo's better than you?
This is the thing, though. This is the thing. The reason why I feel like is the best time to do it is because if you don't do it now, he's going to be on his 5th-year option, and he's definitely not coming back if you have him play on his 5th-year option.
Well, no, but you can tag him if you want. You own the tag for 2 years.
For sure, not coming back.
The second year is really prohibitive on the tag, but the first year's not great on the tag. The second year, you would never tag him.
Yeah, but I mean, for you to be there is that threshold of when your player is kind of maxed out what they've done to be able to start those conversations as like a show of good gesture. I think the Niners waiting all the way, it's like stonewalling BA, knowing what he actually wants all the way into this 5th-year option. I mean, you're basically holding him hostage, and really, he'd be a malcontent. It'd be a shit show. It would be a shit show, Larry, if you held him to his 5th-year option, because he for sure would be gone.
He'd be pissed.
He'd be gone.
Well, not that he'd be pissed. I mean, he's going to sit there and stew and that kind of thing. And that's and I think that if you don't think about that, you're not really doing your due diligence. If you're Lynch, that's why there is some motivation to do it. But I'm just saying, look at the way Debo's working out. What if Debo has just this incredible bounce back year and has 13 touchdowns and some amazing year and looks great, and you drafted him and he's your guy, and not, we know he's a tone setter. So let's just say he's a tone setter who has his greatest year this year. Well, are you going to get rid of him at the end of the year? I mean, you can't get rid of him at the end of the year, but if you do the Aiyuk deal and you give him $30 million, he's gone at the end of the year. So I don't know. The other thing is you're so loaded at wide receiver now. And, Lenore is a free agent next year and Mooney's a free agent next year. And what if you can't afford to sign either corner? And what if Denver calls you and says, you know what? We want Aiyuk because, we'll give you Marvin Mims and Surtain.
Hell no, Larry.
You wouldn't do that?
Larry, that's a bad deal. Like,
Larry, but not. I mean, to get a number one corner for BA is a bad deal. No, you don't think that's a fair deal?
I think that BA is a fringe number one receiver, and I think that. You
think it's a bad deal for Denver?
Yes, that is a bad.
Oh, I thought you meant it was a bad deal for the Niners.
No, that's a bad deal for Denver. I don't see Denver doing that at all.
Okay, well, I mean, we can debate. You're right. I personally kind of agree. I don't see Denver necessarily doing it either, because if they don't want to pay Sutton, why do they want to pay Aiyuk? But whatever. I don't, and if they traded for Aiyuk, I'm just looking at these teams. There's a bunch of wide receivers. I mean, T. Higgins in Cincinnati. I've Cortland Sutton there. There's 3 or 4 other guys that want to get paid. Tyreek wants a new deal now. Aiyuk wants a new deal. I mean, there's a bunch of wide receivers that are out there that want to get paid. And you just kind of wonder, are these guys going to get paid? Are they going to get traded for one another? But like, if you're the Niners and you already have a deep receiver room, heck, and somebody came and offered you a good corner for Aiyuk, it would almost be hard to turn it down, just because a number one corner might get you over the top, might win you the Super Bowl, and might help you next year with Lenore and Mooney, and you might need that help. You've already drafted replacements for Aiyuk and Debo to some degree. I mean, I don't know if they'll actually replace them.
Yeah,
but
we got to see if they're actually actual replacements. They drafted them.
Drafted
there's a lot out there, Larry, right now that we got to see, man. We're 3 weeks out from the kickoff of camp. So we're like trudging through this dead period, man, but we're it's coming. I feel it. The the football gods are peeking over the skies, and we're definitely going to see who comes in shape. We're going to see exactly. I want to see if BA shows up to camp. Do you think he shows up to camp?
No. Do you?
No.
I think he sits out camp until he gets a new deal.
I think he's going to sit.
That's what I'm saying. It's like, if you're the Niners, how long are you going to let this go? Because we know this. Aiyuk's not going to sit out the whole year, because if he sits out the whole year, the year doesn't accrue. So he's going to come back, but he might come back at that deadline. And if that deadline's not until week 6, that could totally screw up your year. So do you allow Aiyuk to screw up your year? Or if you, let's just say, like I was talking about this with somebody the other day. I said, what's your deadline? Do you have a deadline for him? And he's like, when the players report to camp, that's my deadline. And he said, what's yours? I said, well, I guess I would give it about a week after that, just because if maybe a couple weeks after that, maybe if he's not there after the first preseason game, now I need to know. I'd give him a hard deadline. Be ready for the second preseason game. If you're not ready for the second preseason game, we're going to actually entertain trading you. And we'll trade you where we want to trade you, not where you want to go.
That's the thing about the conversations that always make me feel like they're not serious or they're not rooted in like reality, is when they start playing fantasy football where it's like, oh yeah, well, definitely want to play with Jaden. I definitely want to go here. And it's like, why would the Niners do that? Like,
right.
Why would they be so inclined to send you exactly where you want to go and live happily ever after? Like, why?
It's funny. It's funny. It's totally true. But, the other part of it that's even funnier, I think, is the Steeler fan. Because Steeler fan has been absolutely adamant that, the Niners are going to trade one of their star wide receivers to the Steelers.
Mm-hmm.
But then when you say, well, what are the Niners getting back? Are they going to get, Nick Herbig? Oh, they're not trading a good young pass rusher. Okay. They're going to give the Niners Zach Frazier. They're not trading their rookie center.
So what are you going to give up?
So you're getting this awesome wide receiver who's 26 and is probably going to be a Pro Bowler, and probably going to be an All-Pro, maybe a for sure Pro Bowler, and you're not willing to trade your second round center. You're not willing to trade your backup outside linebacker, defensive end. You're not willing. It's like, folks, you're getting Brandon Aiyuk. You're going to have to trade something. I mean, it's like, I think the belief is, the Niners are screwed on the cap. They'll just take some conditional 3rd or 4th round pick. Dude, that ain't happening, buddy. That's a dream. That's a dream. Wake up. Wake yourself up. Have a glass of water. That's not real.
You think that BA, it'd be preposterous for BA to give the Niners a hometown discount. Why do you think the Niners will be inclined to give BA any type of like help
discount?
Trade discount? Like, yeah, you know what, BA, we'll definitely go. No, what are you talking about? And also, there's a difference in the contracts. It's like, when you have a contract negotiation, there's a lot of times where the narrative or the premise around the negotiation is askew. And what I mean by that is, contract negotiations are not for what you have done. Okay? So what you have done is not what you're looking at to get paid. It's not a reward. Okay? Contract negotiations are for what you're going to do. Okay? It's charted out versus the future performance of what you're going to do. All right? So this contract negotiation isn't about Brandon Aiyuk's last 2 good seasons he had. If he didn't have those 2 seasons, we wouldn't even be having the conversation. Playing all of those years gets you to the table. Charting out what you're going to do in the future is what we're talking about. And I get the feeling that BA is trying to get his pound of flesh out of the Niners for years, for time served, if you will. And that's just not what it is. The Niners are looking at BA for what they project or what they forecast he's going to do with this team, not for all of the emotional tropes that you've been holding under your skin all this time, and now you want to get around off. That's not what this is for.
A lot of athletes are in that camp. I mean, we just experienced it here with Klay Thompson. It's like, hey, pay me for the 4 rings I delivered. No, you got paid for that already. It's about what you're going to do going forward. And now he's a Dallas Maverick and Buddy Hield's in town.
Were you getting paid during the rings? Well, there you go.
There you go. There you go. Last question, and then we're going to jump. I think this is a huge, huge year, Coach, for the second year Niners, right? The second year players, the 2023 draft, Jake Moody, Jair Brown, last year. But there's a whole bunch of guys, like Darrell Luter and Jalen Graham and D Winters, and there's a whole group of guys, Ronnie Bell, that just didn't do anything last year.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think? Who's the second year player? Is it Braden Willis? Is it Cam Latu? I mean, the Niners got only Jair Brown and the kicker last year out of their rookie class. Moody was pretty good, made some big kicks in the Super Bowl, missed an extra point, and then Jair Brown was really, really good, especially late in the year when he got more time. But those guys kind of got a chance. But the rest of the entire rookie class did absolutely nothing. Who do you have hope for? Or do you have hope for any of them?
I have two. that I'm looking forward to seeing this year. D Winters. I'm very excited to see if D Winters can get rid of Devondre Campbell. I want D Winters to and then also this shows this is also another unit where Coach Holland has done a very good job at developing linebackers. So the second year is the charm for these guys. Let's see if D Winters has made the jump. But if Devondre Campbell is starting next to Fred Warner, week 1, I'm kind of looking at our room a little differently now, where we're not necessarily the deepest or one of the best linebacker rooms in the NFL. We're kind of top heavy. So I need D Winters and our development to overtake Devondre Campbell starting. And there is a world where Devondre Campbell just absolutely deserves the job, right? And he just beat D Winters out. And that would just be a nice problem to have, to be honest. But D Winters.
It's funny. It's so funny about linebacker, Coach, because it's Fred Warner. I mean, not just it wasn't like I got it off a blog or some other content creator. Fred Warner said that D Winters has had the best offseason of any 49er.
Mm-hmm.
But still, I mean, maybe it's just the stubborn side of me, but still, I really believe in Jalen Graham. My eyes tell me that Jalen Graham can flat out play. Now, Wilkes couldn't get anything out of him, and we'll see if he gets any more run this summer. But to me, my eyes tell me that Jalen Graham is really, really a special player and is going to show that he's a special player. Not just a backer or an NFL player. I think he's a star linebacker. We'll see. That's what I see. But they obviously like Winters. And, I don't know. To me, Jalen, of all that second-year group, Jalen Graham's the one guy that I was convinced at the end of camp, oh, my God, this guy's incredible. And I still am. It's just he hasn't gotten on the field. So it's a big summer for him. If I'm right, and Jalen Graham is the player that I think he is, then your concerns about the linebacker group being top heavy, I think will be alleviated. I think the Graham and Winters have to alleviate that on their own. Right now, you're absolutely right. It looks like you got Warner, you got maybe Greenlaw coming back. Grant did a stream this week where he said he thinks he's going to come back after being on the PUP list. I think it's going to be much later. I think it's going to be Thanksgiving or whatever. But Grant's thinking maybe 4 weeks, 6 weeks, something like that. I hope we see Greenlaw this year, but Graham and Winters, I think, are going to be really fun to watch. I think those guys are going to fire.
One more who I feel like Darrell Luter Jr.
Yes. He looked off. I'll say this too. He looked awesome in the mini camp. I don't know what that means.
He looked good in mini camp.
Oh, well, I mean,
he's already impressive looking ball player, though. He's already impressive looking.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. He's like, in some ways, he's one of the most impressive looking athletes on the field.
Mm-hmm.
But he was prancing around like, when you're on the perimeter, those guys show lots of cockiness, lots of confidence, and he's very confident young player. But watching him in minicamp this last time, I mean, it was like, I'm the best athlete on the field, and I'm going to show it. I mean, it was like, wow, this guy's like preening. He really looks like he believes he's a phenomenal athlete.
In my perfect world, Larry, and this is if the boy can play, because we don't know if he can play, but in my perfect world, it would be Mooney, Darrell Luter, and Demo at the nickel. In my perfect world, that's what I would.
Me too. I'm with you totally.
I think that would really that would take us back to 2019 when E-Man was here. Like, I feel like if we got Luter is E-Man. We just haven't played him yet. In my opinion, like, he has the body type. He's a little bigger than E-Man. He's a little nastier, which is crazy because E-Man is a hellified corner, especially in the physicality department. But I think that if we put Darrell Luter across that other corner spot from Mooney and then put Demo at nickel, now you got 3 corners that can all independently go eat their own food. They can all play zone, and they all are nasty in the run game. I really think that would take our defense to the next level, because in my opinion, and you already heard me talking about the safeties, I'm trying to figure out how to put as much aggression on the field as possible, because I don't know what's going to go down with that defensive line and stopping the run. So you need as much bodies on the field, especially on the perimeter, man, to be able to keep those big hits, those big hitting plays on the ground from hurting you. So,
you know who Luter looks like, Coach?
Almost like a young Sherm, like without shreds.
To me, he looks a lot like Mooney. I mean, he's big and long-armed and rangy and physically dominant, and he's very confident in himself, but he's not like big and long and skinny. He's pretty strong. He's like more like Mooney. He's big and
he's long. Big corner. Yeah, and he can run.
Big corner. Big corner. Can really run. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's gonna be fun. He's gonna be fun.
But we got to be on. And then also, he is a really good special teams guy.
Yeah.
Very good on special teams. So we got to figure out if it really was just the lower extremity injury. I don't know. What was it? A hamstring?
It was, believe it or not, it was a bone bruise on the knee.
Okay.
It
wouldn't go away.
It wouldn't go away. It was a deep tissue bone bruise on the knee, and it caused him pain consistently until like middle of October. And then but the thing about him that's so interesting, he's really young, but he's also an old soul. He's married. He's got a kid. He's like really focused. He's not like a 22-year-old. He's like a 30-year-old, as far as he's got his life away from football, very grounded, very settled. He's not, he's got a very intense focus. And then at South Alabama, they played him strictly as a press man on the line of scrimmage corner. He didn't play off coverage. He didn't play a lot of zone. Even when they played zone on the backs on the other side. He played press man up on the line. That's good. That's good.
This is what worries me about Luter, is because if they wanted to put him on the field, they would. But if he was hurt, so I'll give you that. The only thing that kind of worries me, though, is that his skill set did just get acquired this year. I mean, Renardo Green is kind of a smaller version of how Darrell Luter Jr. plays. Man on, aggressive, handsy, on an island by himself. You saw the games that he had against Malik Neighbors. And I don't know, man. Maybe the Niners got Renardo Green because they just don't think that they can replicate. They can't get the skill set out of Darrell Luter. So, I mean, I don't know, man. It's Renardo.
My buddy's a Florida State guy. I got a buddy who lives in Tallahassee who's a big Florida State guy who I went to college with, and he's now doing has his own company. He lives in Tallahassee. So he's become like a de facto Florida State guy. He thinks that Renardo Green is going to be a star. Now, granted, my buddy's just a sales guy. He's not a
because
football
I thought
scout.
somebody else said in the chat. I thought that Renardo Green was the safety. I thought that they were going to play him as safety once they got him.
He might. He might play free safety. I mean, he might be their best option as a coverage free safety. But he's very confident.
When I first saw his tape and saw how rangy he was, I thought that they were going to play him as safety, because one thing I tell you right now is that boy cannot stop no fade route. Lord, all of the touchdowns that he gets scored on are fade routes. Just cut on the tape and look at Renardo Green get scored on. It is fades. I don't know what it is about that route, his depth perception, high pointing the ball, using the sideline as your friend, all of that jazz. I don't know why he does not know how to put it together. But I thought that they were going to put Renardo Green as safety, and then because it's a numbers game, right? So how many cornerbacks do you think we keep this year, Larry? Do you think we keep
5 or 6? I mean, I would say 5 or 6 is the number. Typically you want 5 for sure.
Right.
And so let's just say it's Mooney, and then it's Demo, and then let's say Luter. Let's just throw Luter up at the starter group. Okay. So you got 3. Then you got Womack, who's definitely NFL. I mean, Womack is definitely NFL. So that's 4. You got Renardo. That's 5. You got Yadam. That's 6. And Yadam looks good.
And Ambry.
And you got Ambry. That's 7. And you got Rock Yassin. That's 8.
All right. So here go my 6.
That's a lot. That's a lot of corners. So that's what I'm saying. You may see them slide Renardo. And you also have Chase Lucas, who's a special teamer. That's 9. So they got a lot of guys, man. They got a lot of guys.
But the thing about it is that they're gonna. This is how I would do it. I would go Mooney, Demo. I'm keeping Renardo Green, Darrell Luter Jr., and I'm keeping Isaac Yadam and Rock Yassin. Womack.
The only thing about Rock Yassin is they're saying the knee. His knee may not be right.
Really?
Yeah, there's some concern about his physical well-being. So, he's more of a
okay. So it doesn't make it. It's down. It's all right. It's between Womack and Ambry. Who you keeping? No, Luter's staying. I already keeping Luter.
Oh, you got
Ambry
Luter. Yeah.
Who you keeping?
I don't like getting rid of corners. I didn't want to lose Jameson last year. I thought that was a terrible decision. I'm keeping, obviously, Mooney, Demo, Green, Yadam.
Okay.
Luter.
Okay.
And Womack.
So
I'm cutting him. I'm probably trading.
You ain't getting Thomas.
Well, you never know. That's the thing. I'm expecting these guys all to play pretty well. Like, I think Ambry's going to play pretty well, but I still think he could get caught up in a numbers game. But I mean, to me, Luter, Womack, Renardo, Lenore, Mooney Ward, and Yadam all have starting potential. So those, I'm keeping those 6. And not even, they probably only go with 5, but I think when you're that loaded with real cover guys, you got to go with 6. You got to figure out and steal a spot from somebody else somewhere
so
else.
They keep 6 safety. I mean, they keep 6 cornerbacks. So you're thinking they're only going to keep 4 safeties?
Right. And the 4 safeties would be Jair and Hufanga, and then Odom and Mustafa. But I do not know if Hufanga is going to be healthy. And then also Jalen Mahoney from Vanderbilt, I think, is going to play well. So we'll watch for him too. And then also, you never know, they could add a safety. And they could add a safety at the cut down. So I think the big competitions are going to be like, to me, what I'm looking for. If I show up, today's first day of camp, okay, I want to see where, show me. There's 3 key guys in that D line I got to take a look at. I got to see what Jordan Elliott looks like, Drake Jackson, and Robert Beal. Those 3 guys. If all 3 of those guys are ready to roll, I'm not as concerned about the D line. At linebacker, I've got to see the 3 young guys: Tatum Bethune, Jalen Graham, D. Winters. Got to see what those 3 young guys look like. And in the defensive backfield, it's, just the young corners, Womack, Luter, and the young safeties, Mustafa, Mahoney, Renardo Green. Those are the players I want to watch on that side. And then offensively, I want to see Cody Schrader and Garendo. There's a lot of talk that they're going to wind up trading a running back. They're really loaded there.
Definitely going to trade a running back. I was looking at that. So I'm looking at the running back numbers right now. And obviously they're paying Christian a shit ton, right?
Right.
So they're paying Christian, but something else just like really stuck out to me. I'm on Sport Track. They're paying the running back, what's his name?
Patrick Taylor
Jr., $1.6 million.
I'll say this: he looks incredible in the uniform at minicamp. I mean, the guy is ripped.
Yeah,
but I mean, I can't imagine a scenario where he makes the team.
He's gonna make the team because they're paying him that money. They're paying him $1 million, not 1 point. They're paying him $1,055,000. That's a lot of money for the Niners paying running backs. The Niners may move a running back. It's strange to pay a guy like that. It's almost like they're paying him money because they know they're going to use him later because they're going to move somebody at running back. Because that for him to be the fifth or sixth back on the depth and to be making $1 million on this team, they're keeping him. So somebody may
to me, I don't see how he makes it. I mean, so you got, assuming Juice stays and McCaffrey's obviously your starter. Right. There's two right there. And let's say you're going to go with four. Let's say you're going to go with five. So you have two. And then that means you got three spots between Mitchell, Garendo, Taylor, Mason, and Schrader.
I see it now, man.
Only three of the five can make it.
Isaac Garendo's staying because that's a Kyle pick. Kyle is staying because he's Kyle Juszczyk. Christian McCaffrey isn't going anywhere. And Kyle loves Elijah Mitchell. He'll never move off Elijah Mitchell. And they're paying this Patrick Taylor dude. And look at his skill set. He's over 200. He's like 217. He's Jordan Mason.
You think Jordan Mason's going to get traded?
They're going to move Jordan Mason, bro.
Well, I'll tell you this, too. Cody Schrader looks terrific. I mean, he looks really good. Wait until you see Cody Schrader in the preseason. Then you're going to be like, oh, Christ, you can't get rid of Cody Schrader.
Yeah.
So I don't know. They're loaded. I mean, they got a couple spots that are really loaded. Running back, wide receiver. They got good depth they're going to have good competition for the backup O-line spots. They got good depth at linebacker, great depth at corner. They got a few thin spots like all football teams, but they're, they look pretty good. They look pretty good. Let's hit the supers and then we'll jet. A warm day here in the creek and we'll get out to it. Run the ball. Kyle says, how much does getting absolutely shut down in the Super Bowl matter in BA negotiations? I don't know that he was, shut down. It's just like that, like on that ball where Chris Jones jumped in and Aiyuk, made a nice move on Snead. Snead fell to the ground. I mean, Aiyuk beat him on that ball. It's not the receiver's fault on that one. They didn't connect as much as they wanted to. That's for sure. Let's just say this. I don't think, as you say, getting absolutely shut down. Let's just take what he did in the Super Bowl. I don't think his Super Bowl performance hurts him, but I think that if he had lit it up, if he had taken L'Jarius Sneed and said, "Hey, L'Jarius, how's 12 catches for 185 and 2 touchdowns?" then this deal's done already. But because he was just okay in the Super Bowl, I don't think his performance hurt his contract, but I think if he'd had an awesome performance, it would have helped. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
Run the ball, Kyle. Oh, wait. There it is. He says, is it possible to give Aiyuk $28 million a year, backload the deal, and then just trade him in the next year or two if Pearsall comes alive? That way you're keeping BA happy and cap flexible if Pearsall bails. I do think they're a lot of this contract. Kev is a believer of this as well, even though he's in Europe right now. He thinks they're going to backload this deal. And I've heard a couple people suggest they're going to backload this deal.
Mhm.
So, yeah, you've got some flexibility there. I'm not sure the exact rules on the trade front and what that does to some of the bonus money. It might accelerate it. Asa 86 coming in late. You assume BA is highballing the 49ers. What if the 49ers are lowballing BA? Low guarantee is less than Debo's. I'll say it again. BA is the culture, not Bosa. Selfish and stupid, not Debo. Inconsistently lazy. He makes a lot of good points.
Great points.
Makes a lot of good points here. A lot of good points here.
Yeah, he's making phenomenal points, bro.
What do you think? Let's take the first one. Do you think that BA's number is too high, or do you think that the Niners number is too low? Because I'll jump in first if you want to think about it. I think the Niners number is too low. I really do. And here's why.
Yeah.
Because this is the perfect wide receiver for you.
Yeah.
He does not complain when he doesn't get the ball. He blocks downfield with aggression. He is physical. He's a 6'1" player who plays like 6'4" because of long arms. He's got a body type that's going to age really, really well. He's not a diva. He's a legitimately tough guy. This is the receiver. If I told you invent a receiver and you could go with all these traits, I want a guy who does a little bit of this, a little bit of that. You would be picking this guy. I would take BA over CeeDee Lamb because CeeDee Lamb doesn't block like BA.
He's lazy.
I would take BA over a number of the top receivers because they don't block like this guy blocks, and you are a running football team. So I think, I'm not saying the Niners are screwing him. I'm just saying the Niners are playing super, super hardball because they know the Purdy contract's coming, and they also know that they have the leverage, and they know that because of the depth at wide receiver, they have twice the leverage. So they got twice the leverage. They got the Purdy contract coming. That's why they're playing this super hardball game with Aiyuk. But in reality, I think the Niners should give in to the 30 and just say, here it is. Because I think he's that valuable to them. I think his numbers show it. His efficiency is also, we're in an era where we value production, but we really, really, really value efficient production. And that's what Brandon Aiyuk provides the 49ers. He had 28 catches this year of 20-plus yards. It was second in the NFL. Tyreek was number one. Tyreek did it in 181 targets. Aiyuk did it in 105 targets. The efficiency, the blocking, the lack of diva-ness, I think this is the receiver that you pay. And the body type to have longevity, I think this is the guy you pay. I don't understand quite the super hardball. I don't. Where are you?
I'm there. It's just got to make sense. I understand that, you got to pay him and he fits in nicely. But at the same time, man, it's got to make sense. If BA gets paid the 30, Debo's gone. The whole offense changes. You got to pay Brock no less than 50. That's in stone, damn near. So you just
might be 60.
Right. So you gotta ask, like, all right, man, you want this money, man, but are you really gonna like be a leader? You gonna be here? You know what I'm saying? I understand that, like, for him to get that money, that means that we can't have this type of team that you're accustomed to growing up with. Right? Like, it's almost like what came first, the chicken or the egg? It's like you want to talk to me about how being a professional in the league is and how you've gone through and became a real pro, but you don't know nothing but what we've done here. You ain't never been to no other team. You don't have no other NFL experiences. You only know what you know. And you're gonna sit here and tell me what I need to know. It's almost, in a sense, it is kind of rich when the players is like, this is what I deserve in the market and this is what I've done. And it's just like, man, we gave you your first NFL playbook.
I'm generally pro players. I'm generally pro player.
I am pro player, but it does, you can't act like it's all one-sided now.
Totally.
Come on now.
But I'm pro player. I'm pro player because the players, one, risk paralysis on every snap, and two, they only really get one big payday. Like this is this guy's payday. So I know it doesn't. Anytime you're asking, you got a holdout situation, you're making good money. It always makes everybody look kind of bad. But overall, I'm about the players getting their money, but I'd like to do it quieter than this. This seems like it's been loud. I wish it was a little quieter. I guess I would just say that. Asa 86's hometown discount. Where was Fred's, Kittle's, Bosa's, Debo's discount? Come on, guys. Fair or fair. If you don't treat them fair, if you don't treat me fair, F you. I'm not saying he owes them a hometown discount. I'm saying that he was asked about it in the Pivot podcast, and he said he's not giving a hometown discount. And I'm not saying he has to give a hometown discount. I'm not. But there are advantages. I mean, like anything else, there's advantages. I mean, people look at, his numbers aren't what they could be if he was on another team. His career is going to be lengthened by having other weapons. I mean, I saw Earl Campbell. I saw some of these players that got used heavily and thrown away. You want to be on a team where there's other players, so you're not just ridden hard and just thrown away after 5 years. So yeah, I mean yes.
Look, for me, we have seen this. We've seen this. Remember Odell?
Yeah.
Remember Odell? Take your ass over there to Cleveland, boy. Keep it up. You can get your money. You're going to get paid.
You want to go way back. How about Eric Dickerson? He was with the Rams. He was running behind Jackie Slater and all these great off Doug Smith. All of a sudden he goes to the Colts. And they had no offensive line to speak of at all, and his career was done 3 years later.
And complain. It's like, you wanted this. You wanted this. You wanted your money. All right. There's things that you got to drop off when you go get your money because it's on you now. So that's what I'm saying. Brandon Aiyuk has been an asset, a real asset to this team. Really. He's done everything that he's supposed to do. Professionally, he has done the best. But that man plays with legit all pros. He's played on the most unrealistic NFL rosters known to recent date. That's the truth, man. NFL teams aren't this talented.
And there's pros and cons to that, right? The pros are that you don't have your body doesn't get beat up. The cons are your numbers aren't as good.
Yeah. But if you want to come in, there's a reason why receivers who would make it $30 million a year get paid that money because they know there's nothing else there. They got to pay him that.
Right.
I love Justin Jefferson. I think that he deserves all of his money. But don't think that Justin Jefferson wasn't sitting at that negotiation table looking at Minnesota like, so you want me to nurse this quarterback through too? Because Kurt's gone.
Right. Staring at JJ McCarthy and Darnold.
Yeah. So it's like, you really want to do this now? We're going to sit here and act like I'm not going to be literally the offense week in and week out. How many bad balls are you going to sit up in the seats and watch me catch this season? You better pay like you weigh. That's not BA's circumstance. So he deserves his money. He does. And if it's not here, so be it. But don't think it's for sure going to be in DC. They could put you in New England and you could never make the playoffs again. There is context. We talk about Kyle, we talk about the team and all that. Man, this team was in the Super Bowl. You ain't here complaining about your targets in the Super Bowl. Just that counts for something. Yeah. So it's there's give and take. You're absolutely right. There's give and take in these situations. It's not linear. It's not as simple as just what meets the eye. Every team is not like every other team. Your money might be better on one team than another, but your how much you touch the football may be better on one team than another. And you're trying to manage a whole career. It's not just about it's crazy to me, man. It's like, would the Pivot even want to talk to BA's ass if the Niners were were consistently losing?
Great question. Here's the other question. Would they want to talk to him if tomorrow he was a Patriot?
No.
On a team that won 4 games.
He's not even realizing that. Like, even the fact of what the team has done thus far outside of you is part and parcel of one of the reasons why this is even a big deal. This ain't all about you. Part of this is the Niners too. Like, come on, man. Like, for him to even say that, like, man, I love being the center of attention. It's like, oh, wait a minute, bro. You're trying to get re-signed on a team that was in the Super Bowl this year, okay? And they are perennially trying to get to the Super Bowl every year, all right? This ain't all you, all right? So it's like, it's not the flex he thinks it is, man. It's really not.
The other part that I didn't think is going to play well, and I don't know how you feel about this, but I just don't think it's going to play well in the room when he was like in the Pivot podcast, do you think at all about what other guys make? He's like, no. I mean, now granted, that's most guys. It's not a good soundbite. Like, I don't care about anybody else. I want my money. I don't care about anybody else. That kind of stuff. I mean, I think most of the guys they would not be turned off to that because they understand. You say what you got to say. It's business and that kind of thing. Yeah. But it doesn't look good. It doesn't, and it definitely doesn't sound good. Stephen Draper says triple bonus structure for BA's money solved. There you go. All right. Oh, and one last one here from Asa, who just snuck in. He says maybe Bosa would have had more than 10 sacks last year if he didn't price out the rest of the D line. Yeah, I think that was the other thing. ESPN projected Bosa to have 10 sacks this year. With Leonard Floyd there, I think, he's probably closer to 13 or 14. That'd be my guess.
But Ace, you can't say that Nick priced out the defensive line when they turned right around and paid Javon Hargraves.
Yeah. And God, Hargrave really didn't show. He's the guy who took the bag, who better fire this year, or he's gone at the end of the year. Better. Coach, what do you got cooking the rest of the day? Have you run Hannibal so far yet today? Or it's hot, right? Well, can Hannibal run in the heat?
I mean, not really, man. He's older now. When he was like 1 to 5, literally anything. But now that he's like 8, I gotta bring the water with me. We gotta pace ourselves because I'm not lugging his big butt home. So
when dogs are done running, they're done running.
He is done. When he's done, he's like, I'm plopping. So but he's older now. It's different, but man, it's a smoker out here, man. I think it's like 94, 95 out here today.
Oh, my God. It's going to be 105 or something like that later here. Hey, that's going to do it for us. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle. Thanks to Sharp Corner Sports Cards and Collectibles. Thanks to Underdog Fantasy. Yes, Coach?
Call-in show, 3:30. Bang, bang. Come through,
3:30 Eastern. So that's in about an hour and a half.
Hour and a half
on Coach's channel, and it's right there at bang-bang_49. Everybody, if you're hanging in the chat, hit like and subscribe right now, and then jet over to Coach's YouTube channel, bang-bang_49. Give him a like and a follow over there. He's building that thing into a monster. Coach, have a great rest of your week, man. We're 2-3 weeks away from camp, man. It's not going to be that long before we're talking about actual hitting. It's just around the corner.
It's time to go, Larry. Excited, baby.
Have a great day, everybody. For Coach, I'm Larry. Peace. Hold on.
Never met a man I've been scared of. Careful, you won't get it.